Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be giving you 3 tips for Codex and showing you some of the tips that I actually integrate into my workflow to make sure that I'm getting the most optimal usage out of Codex, one of the #1 agents or AI coding agents in the market right now. And I use Codex regularly. I use it pretty much every day in our Vibe Coding an App to $1 million series where I'm live streaming an app until I make $1 million. And we've built with Codex, we've been able to build View Creator. So I'm going to show you guys View Creator real quick for those of you that are just now tuning in. So View Creator is an all-in-one platform to create viral content. And we've built this using only AI tools. So I didn't write a single line of code myself. And we just have a beautiful product where users are actually able to really use AI tools for creators and brands to be able to use AI to create content. So with that being said, I've been using Codex now for a long time, and there's certain things that I get asked a lot on my channel. And some of the things that we're going to be doing today is we're actually going to be integrating some of these tips into the View Creator project. So the #1 tip is the agents.md file and the importance of integrating an agents.md file. Now, with that being said, an agents.md file is similar to a Cursor rules file. So if you're similar with Cursor, you'll know that in Cursor, they recommend that you essentially set up what's called a Cursor rules file, where it's a file that Cursor has access to and looks for when it's working on your project, so that it essentially has some guardrails on it. So actually, to date, as I've been using Codex, I have not integrated an agents.md file. So again, an agents.md file is the same or the equivalent to a Cursor rules file, but for Codex. So for Codex, you need to set up an agents.md file. And we're going to be doing that because so far, my workflow when using AI agents is primarily centered around this concept of building fast and then iterating upon what you build. So essentially, I have an idea and then I'll kind of stream my conscious to one of the AI agents that's working for me, and that AI agent will then go off and do that task, and then I'll review it, see what it did, see if it did anything wrong, and then I'll iterate based off of that. But now that we have such a big project, the View Creator project has multiple repositories, AWS infrastructure. It's a very large project that's only going to be getting bigger. So now what we need to do is we need to start integrating some of these guardrails so that our project doesn't get out of hand. So with that being said, if we take a look at the structure, I'm just going to do an ls and show you guys, some of the project directories, the most important that are in this this directory, this View Creator directory here, is the API, the user interface, and then the database. And what I want to do is I actually want to create the agents.md file for each of those repositories. And what's nice is you can actually use Codex to be able to create those files for you. So I just launched Codex, and I'm now going to prompt it, and I'm essentially going to say, hey, I want you to look into this specific directory and notice, some of the best practices that we're already integrating into the project, and then help me to create, an agents.md file that use the best practices so that, we now have some guardrails on our project as we go forward into the future and the project gets bigger and bigger. So let's just use WhisperFlow to give it a prompt real quick. I need you to evaluate the View Creator database directory in depth and do a complete review of the repository, identifying all of the consistent patterns that you see in the best practices that are utilized in the project. And then I need you to create an agents.md file that will be used by Codex as we proceed into the future, essentially to put nice guardrails on the project so that Codex is aware of the best practices and what we are trying to do. So think deeply and think about what the purpose of an agents.md file actually is, and then properly create an agents.md file in the root directory of the View Creator database repository that integrate best practices, as well as put guardrails on Codex to integrate best practices and follow the consistent approach that we are using with the patterns that you see in the existing repository. So we're going to do that in this Codex agent here. So now I'm going to ship that, and then essentially I'm going to now go into the View Creator here again, and I'm going to do Codex, and I'm going to do the same thing essentially. I'm actually going to just read this prompt back, or maybe it'd actually be better to just take this prompt, and let's go to a new ChatGPT window. and we're just going to paste this in, and I'm going to sub out this, but for the API. And then let's see here, Codex is where, so thinking about the API. Okay, so there we go. We changed that to the API, so now we can drop that in here. And this is going to do the same thing, but for the API now. And then we're going to cd out into the main directory. Same thing now, just change API to the UI directory. And that should be good. So let's paste all three of these in here. So these are going to create, that agents.md file. This agent appears to be not working, so let's launch a new agent, Command T, Codex, run it again, and then do a copy paste, make sure that that is actually working. So we now have 3 agents running here that are going to be evaluating the patterns and best practices that are already implemented into the project, and then it's going to create an agents.md file. But now we also need to do the same thing with the view creator root directory. So, I want a agents.md file so that, when I'm working in the root of the directory, which a lot of times I do, that it also has that implementation. So let's just make sure, okay, we're in view creator. So let's launch a 4th agent now and do the same thing, but for the root directory. So that agent's now working. So we now have 1, 2, 3, 4 agents running. Let's now go over here. Let's cd into the view creator repository. And now let's actually, while these are working, I want to talk about now the second tip, which is obviously something that gets asked about a lot, is actually setting up MCP servers. So I'm going to work a little bit with ChatGPT here because I want to make sure that I can, cd into the correct directory and show you guys how this works. But essentially, I'm going to do a screenshot here. Let's just do a clear here. And I want to show you guys how this works. So I'm going to screenshot this, and I'm going to say, I use Codex. How can I navigate into the config.toml config, what is it? Hold on, give me 1 second. I think is it a TOML file, or what actually is it? Let me see here. So it is a, let's see. Yeah, TOML file. All right, so I use Codex. How can I navigate into the TOML file so I can see what is currently in that file? So I just want to essentially navigate into that directory so I can show you guys, hey, what MCP servers do I have hooked up using Codex? Because as you guys know, if you use Cursor, or if you use Windsurf, or if you use GitHub, or if you use Codex or Claude Code, you actually need to configure MCP servers for each of those agentic tools. So you can't just, you don't just set up an MCP with Cursor and then you're good to go. Each of those tools actually has different setups and different integrations for using those tools. So what we're going to do is I essentially want to have ChatGPT, I'm just getting an idea of like, hey, how can I navigate into that directory so that we can actually take a look at what's already in there. And then I'm going to be talking a little bit about what MCP servers that you guys should be using. I'm going to be talking about which ones that I am currently using. And then we'll get into that. So while that's loading, I actually just want to show you guys what I'm currently using for Cursor. So what MCP servers am I using in Cursor? And I'll show you guys what I used in Cursor just by taking a quick screenshot. And then we're going to take what I have in Cursor and actually integrate it with Codex. So here I use Stripe, Playwright, TestSprite, Sentry, AWS documentation, ShadCN. And let's see here. So it says find this. So let's just do this here. That should get us where we need to go. All right. Nothing there. Let's just use Cursor so that we can actually find the TOML file real quick. Find the config.toml file that's associated with Codex on my computer. Okay. All right, so I've just launched this. Gonna find that file. So you guys can use this as well. This is just one example of like, hey, where actually is this file? How do you find it? So Cursor's finding it right now. Gonna go through a couple renditions to get that. But yeah, so I mean, here's the MCP servers that I use, and but those are only configured with Cursor. So hey, to actually get that associated with Codex, you're gonna have to do something different. So don't allow. I never allow Cursor to actually access different files on my computer, by the way. It's not really a best practice. All right, broaden the search. Let's try this. All right, so we did find it, but that's associated with Stripe. So we may actually need to create this file. Let's just drop that in. Okay. All right, so these agents are still working in the background. Don't forget about those. So you have 4. Looks like this one is still kind of just reviewing all of this setup. All right. This is still working. Let's go back to ChatGPT and see if that's navigating. All right, so it says, looks like the only config on your Mac right now is Stripes. You can view that here. Ask Codex where its config lives. So this is actually something that I want to figure out. All right. All right, let's just ask Codex. Where does my config.toml file live that is associated with Codex? All right, let's launch this. All right, so looks like Cursor did finish. Let's see if it was able to find anything. Let's get this out of the way. So it said, I found the config file at users Matthew Miller codex.config, but this appears to be for the AI codex model, not media codex. Okay, I mean, that's perfect, right? So let's now pull that up. Okay, so here it is. I'm just going to say open this up. All right, so you guys can see here. It looks like it's already open. Okay, so here is my config file. So I kind of just used Cursor to find it for me on my computer. So wherever it may differ depending on where you have it. So you guys can see here that this is what the config.toml file looks like. And it's very important because this is the config for your project. So you can see here, we have a couple different repositories that Codex knows that it's able to have trust in. So you can see these are the projects that we're currently working on. And then the MCP servers, this is how you set up the MCP. So it's this here. So it says MCP servers.chrome-devtools, MCP servers.playwright. And then, the arguments actually allow that to happen. So we're taking a look at this. And now essentially what I want to do is I want to say, hey, what kind of other MCP servers can we add? And let's just paste this in. So something really cool is that we can say this is pasted from my config.toml file. Review my project in depth and think about other MCP servers that we could add that would assist me in improving the project and making my Codex more of a useful tool. Then update the config.toml file respectively. All right, so we're going to drop that in. And essentially what this is going to do is it's going to be able to say, okay, let me take a look at the project. Let me see, what he's using, and then identify hey, can we do anything to actually, improve this this setup? So note that, the second tip is that this config.toml file is very important. It can be a little bit tricky to find, but you can use Cursor to find that and identify, okay, where is it at on my computer? And how do I find it? Most likely it's under, for me it was my username, codex config.toml. So that's where mine was. Maybe similar to you guys. So let's see here. So this is now working. Boom, 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 boom. We have 5 agents now working. And now the last tip that I want to talk about, tip number 3, is actually probably the question that I get asked most on the channel, since I have a little bit of a, unique workflow when it comes to Codex, and a lot of people ask me, hey, how do you manage all of these agents at once, and are they not overlapping on each other? And actually, a lot of people can be sometimes pretty negative, essentially saying that I don't know what I'm doing, or that I'm inexperienced and I'm making the agents work on top of each other. But something that I want to say is that this is actually the best way to use AI today, because now, with some of these tools, what's happened is that the actual thinking that goes into each task is higher, and the amount of compute that goes into each task is higher, especially when you're working with CLI tools. So for example, if you use Claude Code, Codex, or Droid, whatever tool that you use, essentially what these CLI tools do is they work longer and they think for longer, and then they end up producing a better result, where if you compare that with IDE tools like Cursor, they're faster, but they don't put as much compute into each task. So, with that being said, tip number 3 is to be able to launch multiple agents in congruence or simultaneously with one another, so that they can actually work on different tasks. And how you do that is, for example, let me pull up my Trello board, and I'll talk to you guys kind of how I manage that, and just share with you, okay, like, hey, this is how it works for me. So if I go over here to my completed tasks, you guys will see some of the tasks that we've completed lately on the View Creator project here. Just here, if I scroll down, you can see all these tasks. But something that's really cool is, let's scroll to the top here, and you can see that some of these are labeled like 1, 2. This is a super long prompt, but I'm sure that it has a label on it of which terminal it was working on. This one's 3. This one's 1. This one's 5. This one's 3. This one's 2. This one's 4. This one's 6. So what do those numbers actually mean? And why do I do that? So this is a way that I've actually constructed my workflow to be able to work on multiple tasks simultaneously, and to ensure that I keep track of which agent is working on what. So for example, we're launching, we were working on 5 agents, and in my mind, I know which task each agent was working on. So for example, we deployed this agent to work on the View Creator database to create that agents.md file. This agent was working on the API to create that agents.md file, and then this one was working on the UI to create that agents.md file, and then this one was working on in the base repository to create the agents.md file, and now this one is working on the config.toml file. So what a lot of people do is they'll just launch one AI agent at once, but look at how long these AI agents actually work for now. This one's been working for 12 minutes, this one's been working for 12 minutes, this one's been working for 12 minutes. So if I wasn't launching and working on multiple things at once, it would be taking a long time for me to get this simple task done that, this video is only 17 minutes long, and we're about to get everything done that we need to. Just in the next couple minutes, I'll probably be able to wrap it up. And, it's cool because you just have to be mindful of what agent is working on which task. And since code bases can be very large, and you can deploy these agents on different parts of your code base where they won't conflict. So for example, a lot of people, they kind of misunderstand. They say, oh, he's working on different branches. Like each agent is working on a different branch. And what I've found is that that is actually not the optimal approach. Like if I pull up Cursor here and show you guys essentially how this works, I'm just in the dev branch on all of my branches. Like here, if I go to repositories, you'll see down here, I guess that one's a bad example, but these are for the most part all in the dev branch, or they're just in the same repository. So, I have these, I have the API, I have the database, I have the UI, I have my CloudFormation project in here. And what I do is whenever I give tasks, I just think ahead and I think, okay, these are the tasks that I need to get done, and what I need to do is I need to make sure that I can do them all simultaneously, because I know that Codex takes a while to actually work through different tasks. So you need to maximize the use of your time and essentially become an AI manager and be able to deploy AI agents into different aspects of your project. This is easier if your project is larger, but then you should also know when to only be working with one agent. So for example, if I go to View Creator, I'll show you a good example of this. So on View Creator, let's head over to the dashboard, And this would be a good example. So for our agentic feature, this agent builder that we created, I think it was on like day 44 of Vibe Coding an App until I make $1 million. But this, we only used Cursor to build this. And the reason that we only used Cursor is because I wanted to focus solely on this task. And I didn't know what I actually wanted it to look like. I knew I had a picture in my mind of, okay, I know I kind of want it to be like an N8N type workflow, but I didn't know for sure. So I knew that, hey, if I just drop this into a Codex agent, I can't deploy multiple Codex agents where, hey, one is going to build, this drop down right here, and then one's going to build the nodes, and then one's going to build the background. I knew that, hey, you can't do that. You can't have multiple agents working on top of the same file. So you need to know when to be able to deploy multiple agents and be able to keep track of your tasks in something like Jira, or I use Trello, and then label, what terminal is working on what. So you kind of keep track, whether it's in Trello, in your mind, where each agent is, and be able to keep track of that. Because what I've found is that it's actually probably 5x'd my workflow to be able to work on multiple tasks at once. And this is a good example, right? It's like, hey, this one's been working for 15 minutes. So, for these tasks, if you just take that 1, 2, 3, 4 and take 15 minutes, multiply it by 4, I would have been working on that for an hour. But instead, it's only going to be 15 minutes because I was working on it I just deployed 4 agents at once, or 5 agents at once, and was working on those tasks simultaneously as they kind of came up, because I knew that they wouldn't conflict with each other. So just to kind of recap, the top 3 tips that I recommend is that, hey, you don't need an agents.md file, but for Codex, I would recommend that you integrate an agents.md file, especially when your code base starts to get larger and you have specific best practices and patterns that are in your code base that you want the agent to continue to follow. So that's number 1. Number 2 is to actually take a look at your config.toml file and find it on your computer, whether that's, using the terminal or Cursor. You guys saw me kind of struggle through that a little bit, trying to find out, okay, where actually is this file so that I can see it, because sometimes it's a little bit hard to find depending on your setup. But you can use Cursor for that or use Codex for that. But very important to see, okay, like, what am I actually using? And then the third tip is to be able to learn how to deploy multiple agents at once, because as you guys know, as AI gets more and more powerful, we'll be able to offload more difficult, longer tasks to the AI agents. So in today's world, it's more important now than ever that you actually, are able to become sort of an AI manager and give AI agents different tasks. And it's important that you don't make the agents overlap, but it's also important that you kind of have a task management system where you're able to, deploy each agent with a different task that's working in a different part of the code base. So that's all I have for you today. Just 3 quick tips to kind of understand, and me talking through them. I hope this was helpful. If it was, make sure that you like and subscribe. And I'm excited to see you guys again in the date for day 51 of Vibe Coding an App until I make $1 million. We're over $800 in revenue, and I can't wait to live stream today. So with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video, and have a great rest of your day. See ya.